I'm hearing an alien transmission. Oh, now I'm seeing you. Hello.
Oh, hello. I have finally worked out how to do all the technology things. It's a miracle.
Amazing.
Um,
Amazing. We have defeated the tech god. There's a little bit of
this
a loud
is,
background noise, but I don't want to throw more issues your way, so we can just roll with it.
it might again be my hair, unfortunately. I will tie it back though. Um, I'll just start a 2 minute timer so we can give people 2 minutes to arrive. And in the meantime, I don't know, just vibe, just chat. Um,
Sounds great.
I,
Everyone go get some tea.
yes, oh my god, tea
That's
would have been
all.
such a good idea.
Yeah, it would have been actually. I even have like a cute mug next to me, but it's completely empty. So hey, I got this mug, I think, for Artifice and Access's publication because I always get a mug when a new book comes out, and it's so cute.
Oh my god, that's actually adorable. I also, to prepare for the stream, I put a mask on my Grinch, my Build-A-Bear,
Oh,
because I thought it would match like the vibes. But then I was like, I can't put it anywhere because like my I need like a strap or something so he can just be sitting here.
yeah.
But he's
You
here.
just you just puppeteer the whole like interview. You just you know are behind it and going, okay.
It's not an interview with me. It's an interview with the Grinch. This is what you've all signed up for. Yeah, I'll just have him on my lap and you can see the little tuft of hair.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, now I feel like a Grinch retelling from a disability and like immunocompromised angle could be really fun because the whole like oh yeah, we're celebrating without you, and I don't know. I think there's potential there.
Oh my god, okay, so I hate and love that you just said that because I'm like, the Grinch is one of my favorite things ever, and I'm like, yes, I see the vision. I have always kind of seen the Grinch as like being a little bit, well, especially as I've gotten older and I got diagnosed with autism, I'm like, I feel like I relate to the Grinch in an autistic kind of way. Um, you know, I can't even, I don't even know how to describe. I've just always felt some sort of weird kinship with the Grinch, even though I'm decidedly less grumpy and like standoffish and stuff. But yeah, oh my god, now I have all like the brain worms going on. Like I want to write this.
Good. That's good. That's good. We should probably do it after the like interview, but or after the stream. But creativity is always good. See,
Yes,
okay,
we're
here's the thing. I also have strong emotions about the Grinch that I'm trying to slowly like lessen also because of autism, but unfortunately very negative ones. But I totally see your angle and I feel like I could see it too. But I have like a huge special interest on Christmas. So since growing up, I've been like, what do you mean there's a story about someone who hates Christmas? I hate them. And I don't think I've ever given them like a fair chance. So maybe we should like this Christmas season do a Grinch watch along and a Grinch analysis stream.
I agree. This is a live stream, so it's recorded and we can't
Yes.
take see backsies.
Yeah, you
It's
have to
set in
hold
stone.
us accountable.
Uh,
Yes.
okay, my 2 minute timer has gone off, so you ready to begin?
Yeah, I just clicked into the comments stream, like the chat, so I can see those now, I think. And I see sensory needs Grinch is basically already a thing. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll make it more of a thing. We'll make it the biggest thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's start.
okay, cool. So this is a live stream, but it will obviously be up after the fact. So this is the kind of vibe we're going with. So hello, everyone, and welcome to this stream or welcome to this recording, whenever and wherever you are watching this. So we are going to have a lot of fun tonight. Just Casper and I, we always vibe. It's great. But I will, if anyone is listening, feel free to interact in the chat, leave questions or comments or anything that occurs to you. We would really love to engage with you throughout the stream. And then, of course, at the end there will be a Q&A portion, so we will get a chance to like address things more specifically if they come up. So without further ado, I will introduce myself first. So my name is Ella T. Holmes, and my pronouns are she, her, although I am currently tentatively dabbling in a little cheeky they, them, so feel free to mix it up. I really don't mind. And I am lucky enough to be the host of this stream. Casper luckily asked me, and I'm so, so grateful. Um, I am a creative writer, an essayist, and a disability justice advocate. I live in Australia, and I was very, very lucky to connect with Casper when he submitted a short story to a disability and fantasy anthology that I compiled and edited and illustrated. So, Casper's story was called Lessons in Botany. And here is Artifice and Access, the disability and fantasy anthology of which it is a part. Obviously, it's an anthology, so there are 14 stories total from 14 different authors, and all of the stories represent and tackle and explore disability and chronic illness in many, many different beautiful and wonderful ways. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of Casper and Casper's story as well. And where was I? Oh my goodness. Because this is my channel, I can say what I want. So I fell in love with Casper's writing and the way that he explores themes of like identity and chronic illness, among other really, really important, like really resonant things. And I'm not just saying all of this because, like we've become really good friends now. I genuinely, genuinely mean that. And I'm so honored to be hosting this and like asking the questions and being in conversation with you. So I'm going to hand it off to you now. Casper, who are you? And also, what are you doing here?
After this like super touching sweet intro, I hate to correct you, but you need to do the visual intro real quick.
Oh my god, yes, and I was the one who said that to begin with.
So I
Okay.
remember we were like, one shared memory cell, brain cell.
Teamwork, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so a visual description for anybody listening. I have orangish reddish hair. It's currently tied back, so you can't really see it. I have a middle part. That's about all you can see. I'm wearing white earphones. I am also a white woman, and I am currently wearing a black turtleneck, my favorite outfit. So in my camera, I appear to be somewhat of a floating head next to a set of white curtains. And in the bottom right, for me, you can just barely see a tuft of green fur, which is, of course, my Grinch Build-A-Bear plushie with a KN95 white mask on his face. Very beautiful. Okay, so now that I have done that, thank you for reminding me. Casper, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes. So I'm gonna just start there too, so we have the visuals. And I am. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I am a white trans mask person who has light bluish hair still, but it's very grown out blonde. I'm wearing theoretically purple sort of hipstery glasses that are looking black. And I am also wearing a black tank top and a light blue jeans jacket because I forgot to do laundry. And then behind me, I'm sitting against like medium blue pillow blankets area. I have like a big shadow that's behind my head. I don't know why I'm doing hand gestures with that because the whole point is that it's a bit like auditory, but and I'm sitting in a corner, and then we can also see in the background uh, my balcony door with a white curtain and a little bit of mic in front of me. And I'm wearing a silver chain necklace. So I think that's it. And yeah, that's me. Hello. I have more than me sitting here. Intro. I'm Casper E Falls. Pronouns he, they. I am very excited and honored to be here. Just after all of those lovely compliments, please do check out Ella's work. They have an amazing Substack. She's got a wonderful channel. And just like on basically all of the places with a lot of smart things. And also a cool Ko-fi with like awesome wizard art on it. So that's not the point right now, but like I am haunting you later if you don't check out their wizard art. Okay. I am German. I've lived in the States for 10 years, but I'm now back in Germany. I currently live in Berlin with my spouse, who is in the chat, and my two cats, Victor and Cito. I am I started out as an actor, fell in love with. I kind of was both in love with writing and acting all growing up. Focused on acting, then became too sick to pursue that, and I have more focused on writing since. I am very passionate about uh, queer themes, disability, justice themes, and just giving. M- I like to describe myself as my writing as like reclaiming one's agency and hopeful tones in really shitty situations. So I like to write realistic stuff, but also still have elements of like, and people can be good and make good decisions. And yeah, I am the author of the newly out poetry collection, Survival and Other Surprises. I'm gonna hold that into the camera for a moment and describe it. It's a light blue cover. The background shows a like hospital hallway, though that's not like super clear. And in the middle we have a leopard plushie wearing a hospital gown and also a white KN95 mask, just like the Grinch. Um, and the title is Survival and Other Surprises in 3 different fonts. And at the bottom it says a collection of poems by Casper E Falls. Yeah, so this is my first poetry collection, which is very exciting. And it's my first solo project since changing my pen name for gender reasons, and also because I needed to learn a lot more about writing since publishing my first novel. So I I feel I kind of like relaunched my writing career a little bit. I'm also in Artifice and Access and in another anthology that came out this year called Reverend, an anthology on divinity, in which I also wrote a story about disability, about an immunocompromised person with POTS who is like struggling with the fact that everyone else has moved on and is getting tweeted at by God to not feel so alone and get their shit back together, basically. Um, yeah, but we're talking about this one today, so that's exciting. I think that's a vague. I'm also a little rambly and also very ADHD. Oh, right, I should probably mention this. So I have long COVID, and from long COVID, I developed MECFS. So some people know it as chronic fatigue syndrome, but a lot of people with MECFS are not a fan of the term because it kind of reduces this illness to one symptom. And I wish it was just fatigue. That would make things easier. It's not though. Um, and I also have MCAS, which is basically an allergy to everything, but also not a real allergy, just kind of a random, you might have all kinds of weird symptoms randomly to food and stuff. And other illnesses I don't quite remember right now because brain fog. But yeah, and I'm ADHD. Yeah, I think, and bisexual. I don't know if that's important. I think that's a rambly intro. And I'm very excited to be here because Ella and I have been wanting to like chat and do more project. I mean, we've been chatting every day, but like wanting to do more of a projecty thing. So hopefully this is the first of many.
Yes, hopefully it is the first of many. We intend to do so much more. I also just want to really quickly say that I was like really, really lucky to read your story in the with the God tweeting at the protagonist, and you know that I loved that. So I'm just gonna be like, okay, yes, everyone, please also read that as well as the poetry collection because that was really fun, and just like a brilliant concept. Also, like getting tweets from God is just such a like a premise to me. So now that everybody knows a little bit about who we both are, I just want to quickly run through the program, as it were, like the structure of the stream, so we all kind of know what we're getting into. And hopefully, knowing the structure will also keep us, like on. I was going to say on schedule, but we're not being timed. But everyone should know what I mean. Hopefully. So first, we are going to find out a bit about how the collection came to be, and also like sort of discussing, some things around the concept and uh, the ways that chronic illness or disability kind of impacts and informs, like the creative endeavor of writing. And we are also going to be listening to a small handful of poems throughout this live session and then discussing them. And we are going to be exploring as well in conversation with these poems, extremely naturally, topics like why should we keep trying, and what the reality of creating with a chronic illness might be like for some of us, and also how to keep going and why, and all of that sort of thing. So I'm very, very excited about that, because obviously these are very important conversations. And lastly, we are going to have time for a Q&A. If no questions come in, I'm freestyling it, and it will be very fun. So again, if anyone watching this has any questions or comments or anything like that, please drop them straight away in the chat, no matter how big or small. Also, if it's really, really important, maybe you could start it with a capital Q&A, and then I will absolutely not miss it, because I am looking at the chat beside the camera. So hopefully everyone will be heard, we will chat, and it will be a wonderful, wonderful time. So with all of that said, now that everybody is very well prepared, Casper, can you please tell us the story of how your poetry collection came to exist in this world?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So it is a tragic story. No, but with a happy ending. Yeah. So I was one of the unlucky people that got COVID right in March 2020. First thing, I completely missed the lockdown because I was out of it. And I developed long COVID from it, and a bunch of other issues. But after like a year and a half, I started recovering. And because there's such a pull to, okay, and now we need to be as normal, like get back to normal life and be like as normal as possible. And I just really was strongly in denial about my health issues still, and trying to fit this whole ideal of like, oh yeah, no, I'm trying, I'm persevering, like I'm pushing through. I immediately jumped back into another stage project, actually two plays. And I caught Omicron during that time, and I got much worse, and developed like severe, actually kind of at first extremely severe, like the stages MECFS. So I was completely bedbound for basically a year, and still am like semi bedbound. And it was really rough to get super ill in 2022, when like that was the time when the pandemic was declared over and people were starting to like stop masking and stuff. So the time when I suddenly started like to need the most support, I had the least. And I was really alone during that time. My spouse and I lived in New York, but we didn't really have any local friends during the time, because to all the chaos of like pandemic and stuff, and the sickness too, it was just, it couldn't be maintained, unfortunately, and we don't have quite enough community in that space. And I only had my best friend at the time, and my spouse was struggling to work full time, maintain the house, and figure out like how to keep me alive and that stuff. So I was just kind of spending all my time with one person who was not very healthy for me, and I slowly, like I it got worse and worse, and then I went to Mount Sinai's long COVID clinic, and I that was my like hopes thing for the whole year. It was in summer, and then like that's what pushed me through the rest, when I just, I thought my life was over. I felt like my life was over. And in a way it was. Like everything that my life was before then was over. Um and they just said like, yeah, we can't help you. Try the Mediterranean diet maybe, and it should get better within like 6 months to 8 years. But there's also no guarantee. And at first I'm like, that's such a weird time frame. What do you mean 6 months or 8 years, right? Like so that was not good to hear. And then the doctor also said the thing is though, like reinfection will reset that clock. And it doesn't have to be COVID. It could also, other reinfections can also reset that clock. And I'm like, okay, so I'll have to like keep quarantining, because I was just not in the disability community yet. I didn't know that this is the life that this has always been the life of immunocompromised people. I was very ignorant to the fact of how much ableism, societal ableism, has already impacted all of us. And all of the issues there. So I was just shocked, and she's like, "Oh no, but you probably can just quarantine." I'm like, "So okay, so I can't quarantine, but you're also saying that to get healthy, it'll take me up to 8 years, and if I get sick again, I'll reset the clock. So what are you saying?" And she was just like smiling and shoveling me out of the office, and that was like the appointment I'd waited for so long. So I was in a really really bad space. And my best friend at the time was quite unpredictable, and I was starting to be in a dangerous mental health space, and I asked him like, okay, when we're hanging out, can you please like not yell at me? Which in hindsight I'm already like, that's not good that you have to ask someone to please not yell at you today. But he said yes, and then he did yell at me, and it just set me off into a really bad spiral, and I didn't think I could keep going. Because I felt like my voice just didn't matter. My life was over and I had nothing to give anymore. And then I luckily had a cardiologist appointment the next day. And I barely made it to the night, but then I saw like my heart on the monitor, and it sounds cliche, but that kind of really touched me and had me in a like, okay, but like I'm alive. It's still there beating. It's still there working for me. And like maybe not everything's over. Like what if I just start in the smallest increments again? And then I was just afterwards I was sitting there like, okay, why do I feel like nothing, like my perspective doesn't matter, nothing I say or think matters, and no one wants to hear it, and what I'm going through doesn't matter. And like on the one hand, obviously the world like was acting like it, but I'm like, but I've been, in a queer phobic small town before and stuff. Like it's more severe than that. And then I realized like, okay, well, I also, one of the two people closest to me was also making me feel that daily. Um so I decided to like break off a 10-year close platonic relationship, and was like, okay, one line at a time, I'm going to start writing and reclaiming my voice. And that's how it started with part one of this, which is surviving you. And that part has the shortest poems, because that's really where it started, in these like very small moments of just um trying to process emotions and trying to be like, okay, how can I reclaim my perspective again from this, when I was so, and when I was so in this kind of like gaslighting and this like, I felt very much like, and I think this is familiar in abusive relationships. It's like my I was just living for the other person, and I had kind of lost my grounding. Um, and that was really helpful. But then I actually almost died because I got anaphylaxis in a very traumatic circumstance. And then I'm like, okay, well, now I need to write about that. So this is where kind of the leopard theme came from, because I have one poem in here in which it's talking about like the leopard spots, because I was completely covered in spots for months actually. Like it was really bad during the acute hospital time, but still bad afterwards. And yeah, so I that's where the second part came from, of like surviving me, and of the whole like exploring, okay, how can I write when I can't think? How can I create still when everything I do exhausts me? And just coming to terms with that whole new life and new perspective of everything. And I initially submitted it to a chapbook and chapbook contest thing by a magazine that I'm glad didn't take me, because they got into a lot of controversy right after. But their feedback was like, oh, that the narrator is kind of not really there. And on the one hand, it was a little frustrating because some of the critique felt a little like ableist, but on the other hand, I'm like, it is true, I am like nervous of being very vocal still, and that's kind of part of the whole. I needed to find myself first, after living so long with like being really scared about saying something wrong, and being scared of like getting attacked over anything I say. um and so I ended up then completely like sort of rewriting, but also adding 40 more poems, and adding a whole third section of survival as an act of rebellion. And really going into like I want to have a political voice, I want to like be heard and stuff, and got a lot more, I found my spite in it. um and yeah, that's the version that I then sent to my now publisher, and that's how we ended up here. That was long, but I hope that was a bit of a overview of the whole story.
I feel like this is like one of those author stories that I really genuinely yearn to hear from other like chronically ill and disabled authors, because I think so often just like the story behind anyone's creation is really, really interesting, right? But obviously, when you are someone who is also chronically ill or disabled or whatnot, hearing about how other people have been able to create in circumstances and in situations and going through similar things as you can be not just like inspiring, but it also feels like it just really engages like my heart and my soul and all of that like sort of drive to create myself. And so I'm really just grateful so much that even though you said it was long, I feel like it was the perfect length. Every story like this is just the perfect length, but I do feel like it's so important. So thank you for sharing that, first of all, and also thank you because I feel like some of the things that like inform our work can be incredibly vulnerable, right? So yeah, I feel like that is really important to acknowledge as well. And I just want to add also that I feel like a lot of, what you were speaking about, like this disconnect between you and the world, and, people sort of smiling while they're telling you, oh, you could do this or you could do this. And like, this is technically bad news, but like, and then there's cognitive dissonance going on and everything. And so I really, really love that you turned it into this wonderful, beautiful, and moving poetry collection driven by real experiences. And I guess along those lines, you've already
Yeah,
kind of gone on, like, explained a little bit about how, like, the chronic illness and anaphylaxis, excuse me, like, oh my God, that's like such a huge thing, like, drove you to create and stuff like that. But sort of in these like later times, like in the revisions and things like that, how did chronic illness still, like impact or inform the work, do you think?
yeah. So first off, I want to quickly say that like I agree actually. Esme Wong, who wrote the Collected Schizophrenia, I followed her very closely during that time, and she was one of the reasons why I actually was like, maybe I can, one sentence at a time make it. So I feel like these stories, you're right. I mean, like it feels weird saying that about my own story, but they are important because it tells us that it is still possible, and not in this whole like inspiration porn way of like you can do it, but in a like, okay, this is hell, but in hell you're not completely you know without choice and without like being able to do something. So yeah, just that real quick. The revision. So yeah, it was I've been since writing this collection, I've been on and off struggling with like maintaining a writing practice, and that's been one of the things that's been so hard because I used to, be like, okay, you have to write every day and all that stuff. And it just doesn't work like that anymore. I wrote this actually in one, like, end of January, early February. I wrote it in 3 weeks, the 40 poems, which was bizarre. But I had tried to force my way to NaNoWriMo. I had crashed hard, and I was just super exhausted throughout all of December and the first of January. And then I regained a little bit of energy, but I still didn't have the energy for like I was writing, and I am still writing a nonfiction, like a memoir at the time. And I didn't have the mental energy to continue that, but I wanted to do something. And what I noticed with poetry is like, obviously, like poetry isn't easier than fiction or nonfiction, but it does require more of a, you sit there and you think about it for a bit, and then you like let your brain kind of wander, and then you write down a line, and like, or a stanza set, and then the next day you can come back to it and look at it and be like, okay, how can I like make this even more pungent, but like pungent. I don't know. That's not the word. Punchy. I don't know. Violent. No, but like more. Yeah, you know what I mean. And I noticed that I was able at the time, and it's such a like, I can't, I don't have a this is what I'm capable of because it constantly changes and the baseline constantly fluctuates. But at the time, I was able to do like 3 poems a day, that's like writing or editing. And I had a lot of like bare bones. So actually, sorry, I should add that because this is really important for like chronically ill people. If you want to get into poetry, I super recommend this. I basically had like a year's worth of just one liners in my phone notes app whenever I was like, huh, this sentence sounds good. Or even just something like, I want to, something about like hourglasses that break. And then I just, I had like this whole list. So I just sat down and was like, okay, for the next 3 hours, very slowly while I'm laying down, let me start, picturing things for that. And that's kind of how it went. And it does feel easier on the brain. I mean, I'm also not one of the poets that like write really complex, beautiful language. Like I personally like both, but I also am always a proponent for more accessible poetry. So I do think my language is, you know, a bit simpler. But yeah, I I did answer the question. I think I answered the question.
Yes, you did definitely answer the question. Um, I feel like also just on the topic of like accessibility and poetry specifically, something that I say basically to anyone who ever talks about poetry in proximity to me, I always tell them I don't get poetry. I feel like poetry is one of those art forms that if I see a poem that I really, really like, I'll something pings in my brain and I feel it and I'm like, yes, this is a poem. Other times I read a poem and I'm like, is this not just a sentence? And so I have never been someone who, like, I don't know how else to phrase it other than just like, I don't get poetry. It's just kind of like, I know it when I see it, which feels really weird because I don't get it. So I can't possibly, be like a good judge of it. But one of the things that I definitely enjoy about your collection specifically is that accessibility of like the ideas are so clear, and I'm not sort of having to search the dictionary for like words that I'm not familiar with and stuff. Not that there is anything inherently bad about that. It's just sometimes it is so nice to like sink into a work that you can just sort of understand completely. So yeah, I really, really appreciate that, uh, like style of writing. Um, and I'm also just randomly thinking of a quote that I think must be some sort of default Tumblr UX thing. But there's a quote that's like, it doesn't matter how fast you go so long as you do not stop. And I quite often think about that in in conversations about creating with chronic illness or disability, because it very much often is working in between flares or even working slowly while you're in a flare. And so hearing, yeah, like your experience of both the creation process and like the revision process and the talking about how you were working while you were in bed and all of that sort of stuff, like snatching moments, is really, really lovely to hear. And also, I'm just so, I don't know how, what the word is that I'm thinking of, but just kind of like in awe of, I think, the way that you had all of these emotions and like experiences and just had like a notes app of list of like things that spoke to you. And then you were able to turn it into like a whole collection. I think that that is just amazing. I fear this whole live stream will just be me complimenting you. So
And me blushing. You need to keep that
yeah.
part in too, definitely. Well, I mean, okay, I can shoot back, okay? I mean, you kind of do similar things because you constantly tell me like this would be a good essay topic and this would be good. And you're writing like these little, it almost is kind of like you're putting out a little treasure hunt for your future self, where it's like, oh, this is a good thought, that's a good thought. And it kind of it requires a lot of trust that I don't always have, of like my future self will be able and will have the energy and will have everything to actually do something with these. But it also, I don't know, it's, I mean, obviously it's all you, but it kind of feels like this. kind, self-loving gesture of being like, okay, I can't do it right now, but I trust you that you'll like this is the beginning of an idea and we're gonna collaborate through time type space, you know?
I really love I love that phrasing of like collaborating with yourself through time and all of that. And I'm just now kind of thinking maybe I too need to get myself a notes app instead of just like because I get excited about ideas and then I'm like I'm in our like private chat on Discord or whatever and I'm like I want to write about this thing. Doesn't this sound interesting? Um, but yeah, will I write all of those things? Who
Dude, I
knows?
mean, that's the thing, you know, even if you don't, if you write just 10% of it, like it was still worth it. It was still like little creativity snacks you can eat later.
Creativity snacks. I love it. Also, I just feel like there's something really nice in like whether it's a notes app or like a group chat or a what do you call a group chat that's not a group, it's just one other person. A single person chat. We'll just call it
Direct
that.
exchange? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's such a mouthful. So like it like doesn't really matter where you do it. But I do feel like having those like little reminders for yourself or like even just like putting them in words, even if you don't get to like really fulfill, you know, that entire project or whatever, I think is like really special and also really important because you never know. One day you might wake up and suddenly have the energy or you might suddenly have be struck with inspiration or whatnot. And then you might create a whole entire poetry collection and it might be wonderful.
Ooh, surprise. Yeah, no. And also, I mean, it's also like training. That's the other thing. I kind of did it partially to like I call it identity affirming things, where it's like just having a line out there is at least a yes, I am someone who writes, you know, a line who has creative ideas, and it's important for us to remind ourselves that because I feel like illness gets so all consuming and pain and fatigue get so all consuming that it's hard to remind yourself who you are like outside of it because you're so connected to it, right? And the like you can't really separate it, but you also need to remind yourself that it's not all that you are. So that's also why I really recommend it.
It listening to you say all that makes me think about how much chronic illness and disability and stuff like that, or just like maybe health and our bodies in general, right, is a constant negotiation between different body parts, but also like yourself, like your brain and your body, and also your sentience almost, because sometimes you want to be doing things, but your brain is foggy. And like there are all these different yeah things that need to be negotiated constantly that I find really really interesting. So um, yeah, I feel like
Sure.
this is a totally natural
Sorry.
segue
Two.
into you reading a poem.
Yeah, but not the poem we had set aside. I think we should read negotiations and cliff diving now because we just talked about negotiations, right? Like that's the one we. I think it's the third poem we were going to read, but nope, we're starting there because chaos. That's the other thing. Like make your note apps chaotic. I have like everything in there. Okay, let me just find it. Oh wow, no, it's the fourth poem that we had set aside, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll get to them all or not. So yeah, because I wrote this specifically about this whole negotiation process of like every time you do have a little bit of energy or you don't, but you still have something you really want to do, and having to figure out like, okay, is it worth the crash? Is it not? Like theoretically, you're supposed to just pace and just rest and stuff, but if you don't have a future to look ahead of, then what are you resting for, you know? And I probably shouldn't explain all of that before I read the poem, but like just because of your segue. Negotiations and cliff diving. The edge of my the edge of my energy sings of memories that used to be futures. The cliff beckons me closer, tells me to push past it, promises me its embrace will let me function, will make me human again in the eyes of an ever moving world. Its temptations aren't dipped in glory. They're a load of laundry, a dinner cooked for a stressed spouse, a day at the museum to remind me I am not and have never been the only one living on this planet. So I obey. Sometimes I crawl, responsibility grabs my legs, begs me to not fall for the idea of flying. Sometimes I sprint, faster than any thought, to become the bird who breaks free of its cage, as if illness needs bars to love you dead. Most of the time, I sleepwalk into the fall. I'm still checking the map when the ground disappears. You'd think tumbling over the edge would be dramatic, but it's a quiet loss of gravity. A slight breeze behind my ears before I notice the free fall. Flare ups don't knock. They don't give me time to bar the doors and board the windows. I can't ignore their call, leave it ringing, and pretend I've overslept. I've slept for 12 hours, hoping it might ward off its cursed visit, but the flare up is the prince to my sleeping beauty, no hatch too high to invade my body, no hatred too thorny to leave me alone. When I ask how long it will stay, it smiles. Its teeth haunt me as I sing us both to sleep. Don't move in, don't move in, don't move in. This is not your home. It's as fruitless a plea as counting sheep in an open field. Hope and loss will always mix. The next day it asks, was it worth it? Even though I can't remember what pulled me over the edge, I nod. Being alive? Yeah, it was.
A
Thank you,
stream
thank you.
friendly silent applause. Yay! Do you mind if I share with you my favorite line from that
Yeah,
poem?
please.
Okay, so my favorite, well, I guess I don't really know how to refer to the anatomy of a poem, but my favorite, like really, really short segment, but even though there's like a lot to love, is the I'm still checking the map when the ground disappears. Because I mean, there are so many reasons why I felt like that really resonated with me specifically, but just on the most basic level, I feel like as human beings, especially as like I am an autistic woman, I kind of read that as like, oh, I'm checking the map, as in like I'm constantly hyper vigilant of like, am I fulfilling the correct social script in the right way? Am I doing this action in the right way? And then the line below it that says the ground disappears is feels pretty familiar in terms of like, oh no, I'm clearly doing something wrong, but I don't know what it is, and I've been checking the map the whole time, and like there are just so many things that I deeply related to, and yeah, so that line really, really stuck with me. Like I didn't even need to write that down in a note. I was like, oh yes, the metaphor. Um, but
I,
did you want to talk a little bit about more about what the poem means to you and all that sort
yeah.
of stuff?
First off, I love that, and that's one of the things I really love about poetry too. It's kind of similar to like song lyrics. I feel like you you know the person who wrote it has like one picture in mind, but it in the end, like what I love about poetry is that it expresses things that are really hard to put into words. Like it somehow kind of found a loophole to express things into words that are very hard to talk about. And I love like the associations and the related things that come from that, because that feeling I also know very strongly of the, oh wait, what? I thought I was, following instructions and now it's gone. So like yeah, I really love that. And for me, it's very related, but this line was very much like, I'm trying to do everything right to prevent a flare up. And I think I'm tracking my energy and stuff, but there's so many, especially with like the whole histamine, MCAS, and anaphylactic stuff. There's so many aspects that I cannot track. So you think you have the plan, but then in the end, it's still unpredictable. It's still unpredictable. So yeah. Just real quick, I saw in the comments that "Don't move in." The sentiment struck with me most. I'm so glad to hear that. That's that's one that's definitely very close to my heart too, because every time I do flare up bad, and I just had that last week. I actually had or at the beginning of this week, I think I had a very, very severe flare up. And every time I'm back there, it's just that's what I'm chanting in my head, because this comes with such a existential fear of like, oh god, this time is it actually going to stick? Because like we after getting like ill like that, or after you know baseline drop or something, you start understanding that there isn't a guarantee for it to go away, and that just comes with so much fear. So but at the end, it's also like, but you also do want to push yourself sometimes, because sometimes life is worth it. Sometimes it's a loved one's birthday, or it's like this is, or like that event or something, and yeah, so that's kind of a weird balance. And yeah, for me, this poem is very much about my very complicated relationship with pacing and with pacing my energy and stuff, because I'm really like I really was very bad at it. This is one of the things that like really upsets me nowadays, when you have these assumptions of like, oh, what, you're just lying in bed all day and stuff. And I'm like, I used to be like super workaholic. Okay, I never stood still. I wanted to do all of the things all of the time, and I still want to do all of the things all of the time. But I also have learned that if I let that reign free, then I will do none of the things, none of the time. So yeah, this kind of, I don't know, a flare up feels like a cliff you fall down, and I just wanted to capture this whole feeling of like, sometimes I want to dance near it, but I also shouldn't fall down it. But then sometimes I'm like, wait a second, maybe I can't fly. When you think like, wait, maybe I have actually gotten better, and then you're like, no, 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 it's just you're just free falling. So yeah, that's a bit more that I have, and but I'm glad that it works in terms of neurodivergence as well. Like that's that's one of the things I really love too about writing um, poetry about chronic illness and disability, because I feel like while disability is such a huge umbrella term, a lot of like the feelings of the otherness and whatnot do kind of resonate in different categories, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Just on the like topic, you said that you used to be like really bad at like pacing yourself and sort of knowing where the line is or like how much you'll be able to cope with and all that sort of stuff. I feel like the world really doesn't set anyone up to be very good at pacing themselves, right? And I feel like the cliff metaphor is also so good because it makes me think about how, like, under patriarchy and capitalism, right, we really, really value productivity constantly and strength and all of that sort of stuff. But these things are not exactly super 100% compatible with, being chronically ill or disabled. Or even if you are able bodied, like, that is a lot to ask of human beings every day, all the time. But the sort of cliff metaphor to me, the brain worms that I'm currently having in, on the subject of pacing yourself is like the world is constantly like, you have to keep going, you have to keep going, you have to keep walking, this is the pathway, so walk. And you're walking the pathway, and then all of a sudden you've fallen off the cliff because it's like, well, I did everything you told me to do. I thought I was going somewhere or I was going to achieve something, whether it's like overcoming your disability or whatever horrible thing that capitalism and ableism wants you to do. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, there's no ground beneath my feet, and now I'm in a flare, and metaphorically I have a long way to climb up before I am feeling better. So I just, yeah, the whole sentiment, like the whole poem is just so resonant, I feel like, on so many different levels. And also, thank you, Amazing Kitten, also amazing username, for sharing the sentiment that struck you the most. That's really, really wonderful. And also, I'll just keep saying this throughout the stream. Like, if anyone wants to share what lines resonate with them the most or what these poems make them think of, please definitely like share them in the comments, even when this is a recording, because we would both really, really love to see them.
Definitely. It is also candy. um but yeah, I wanted to say real quick too about the whole like what you're saying with like the world teaches you the complete opposite. I think that's one of the really complicated journeys of embracing your disability, because you have to like learn how to love, prioritize, and trust yourself and your own body and the signals it's giving you and whatnot over pretty much everyone else and everything you've learned too. And that is so hard. And that's actually why I feel like I have a couple of poems in here too that are bring gender identity into the mix, and like being trans, being non-binary. It's because I feel like it's very similar in that regard. It's this whole like, theoretically everything I know speaks against this, but also I have my own reality, and you have like, everyone has this choice of like, are you denying your reality to stay in the comfort of the more comforting narrative of like what everyone teaches you and what you've taught, or do you actually trust yourself and go like, that's another cliff to go off of, to go just in the unknown. And yeah, just by what you were saying, that just made me think of it. And also, like, this is another reminder to like follow Ella on Substack and whatnot, because they've written really great stuff and have more stuff that like I know is coming about this topic that is just very brilliant, and you don't want to miss it.
That is too kind, I fear, but
Oh,
thank
no.
you. uh, I am about to do another really, really natural segue. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, yes, super ready.
Cool. So you just spoke about like how there are all of these narratives, right? That we hear, we grow up with, and we internalize, and then we sort of have to challenge them. And part of challenging them is learning to trust yourself. And I just feel like one could say that we have to rewrite the narratives.
Yes, one could say that. Yeah, and just completely natural. I have some thoughts on the topic that I wrote down a bit ago. That is just like directly in front of me and doesn't take any preparation at all.
Who could have predicted that this would happen?
Right? Right. So yeah, I have a poem called Rewrite, Right, and I hate that I named it that because it's so hard to pronounce with my German accent, but bear with me. Okay. Rewrite. When I pictured my life as a movie, I thought of Billy Elliot or La La Land, unyielding pursuits of the stage, offering my soul to fame and glory. In my darker moments, I thought of Black Swan or Moulin Rouge. I wanted art to consume me, like life eventually would. I wanted to choose the teeth that tear me apart. But those stories have already been told, and my soul is too precious for plagiarism. I must pick up the pen and face the blank page, with years scrubbed clean of hope and preconceived notion. I must turn adversity into a catalyst for character growth so rich the child in me recognizes himself again. My film roles have caught fire, but writing is alchemy. I can still craft this pain into purpose. I can still make the audience weep, rejoice, laugh, feel. And for this one, I'm just gonna show real quick um, about the last line because this is one of the few, I don't know if it shows, one of the few formatting choice I made, because the whole like weep, rejoice, laugh, feel, I wanted it all to be like one word, but also each sentence to be separate, because it's was trying to capture this whole what it feels to perform for an audience, and just, or to send something to readers, which, like, yeah, you can put verbs to it. Yeah, it is verbs. I'm a writer, I know what a verb is. But also it's more of this, like, not quite verbalizable feeling. I hope that didn't sound pretentious, but I just wanted to show this part. So yeah.
Hey, this is your live stream. You're allowed to be as pretentious as you like.
True. True. True.
I'm in full support of this. So just to begin like talking about this poem, I really, really love. I'm just going to share my favorite part about all the poems, I think, because how could
I love
I
that.
not?
Thank you.
Um, oh, I feel like I almost want to actually just be like, my favorite part of the poem is, and then just read the entire poem. But if I had to like choose a smaller part, I really, really love the lines. I wanted to choose the teeth that tear me apart because for like so many reasons, but it just feels so vivid and visceral, and it like perfectly captures the essence of that. I get. Do you call them paragraphs in poetry? I'm showing my
Stanza.
whole. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
I I
Um,
really wish I could tell you this with more certainty, but we're making poetry accessible, right? I also do not have a PhD in poetry.
I feel like I need to brush up on just poetry terminology. But yes, the like stanza, I just feel like it's perfectly like captured in those last two bits, and then um, the line where it reads, "I must turn adversity into a catalyst for character growth so rich the child in me recognizes himself again." That made me think of just like so many things, but also it feels so uh, like poignant and true because there's the whole sentiment of like kids are not born naturally, like ableist or bigoted or anything like that. Like, right, like these are learned behaviors, and these learned behaviors also inform the narratives that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And so I think it's really beautiful the way that you kind of express the sentiment of rewriting, like narratives in such a way that you're basically, it's like an act of really, really deep self love, right? Like returning to that childhood version of you. Yeah, I just find that so, so effective.
I love that. Thank you. And I want to say another part, like thought that went into that line is also this whole idea of like I always wanted to, perform and tell stories and stuff. But then you at some point as a child you learn how to do that, and you get all these, once again preconceived notions of like, okay, this is what it means to be a success as like a storyteller, an artist, and an actor and whatnot. And this is, this is what success looks like. This is what like actually making an impact looks like, and all of that stuff. And I feel like a lot of my journey of surviving this whole plan change of my life has been getting back to the core of what was it like at the core, what was it that I actually wanted to do. And maybe that doesn't mean a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Maybe that like it, that wasn't actually the core of what this was. So I love, your interpretation is also correct, and it's also so true, and it's kind of connected to that too, right? Because it's like what capitalism teaches us what worth looks like and what success looks like, whereas initially we're just drawn to things that make us happy. And yeah, exactly. uh, exactly. I love that. Such a good part of the poem is learning your way back to childhood. That's such a beautiful line too. Okay, so my spouse is also a poet, and we need to all glare at it to write more poems because it's very good. But anyway, exactly like that. And I want to say something about the other line you said about the choosing the teeth that tear you apart. That's actually a bit inspired by a line that my dad used to always say that I like have really mixed feelings about now because yeah, he always used to say like, well, life is life threatening, and it was kind of a like, so you got to take the risks and whatnot. And in some ways it's still a true sentiment, but in also in other ways that's kind of like a bit of the sentiment behind people, not masking and just being like, oh, just keep getting COVID and, roll the dice and not worry about disability and stuff and whatnot. And it just, I had this very strong attitude back in the day as well, where it was just like, well, life, yeah, life is going to kill me eventually. So I might as well choose like what's like I might as well kind of wreck myself for my goals and my ambitions and dreams and stuff. And that's just not actually sustainable. And like it's kind of talks a little bit back to the whole negotiations and cliff diving, right? Like we still do choose it a little bit, choose, the exertions and whatnot, but at the same time it's just back in this balance of like, well, don't kill yourself to live type space.
Don't kill yourself to live is exactly kind of what I was thinking, because it's like, I think, just like we're talking about that sentiment of like life is life threatening. I feel like there's this idea of like, oh, life is meant to be lived, and it's like, yes, that is correct, but also, how will you live your life if you are constantly doing things that are unsustainable, and sort of like not masking, and then getting yourself reinfected with COVID, and then like, if life is meant to be lived, then why aren't you sort of like prolonging your life in like some of the easiest ways? So that's what I'm currently thinking of. And there was one more thing that I really, really loved. This poem is just like really, really hard to like specify things, because I'm like, it's just all of it. But the
Yeah.
line, sorry, I learned the stanza that reads, "But those stories have already been told, and my soul is too precious for plagiarism," I find to be so, so good, because it's like all of those narratives that we hear, we like have to unlearn, right? And it's like, your soul is too precious, you are too valuable and worthy of like, like love and existence and all of that sort of stuff, to continue telling yourself, or like uh, replicating, the narratives that are ultimately harming you. So yes, well done. I would like to also give a silent, stream friendly applause for this poem. Very well
Thank you.
done.
Thank you. I want to say like something about the plagiarism line too, right? Because I actually wait, not stumbling over my words, one word at a time. Because I actually kind of like told myself that again this week too when I was in a really bad crash, of like it's so easy to compare yourself to other artists, to other writers, and to especially to activists. Like right now, that's one of my big struggles because fascism is fascisming very hard, and it's like everyone constantly says the whole like, well, if you've ever asked yourself where you would have been in 1930s Germany, this is what you're doing right now, and it's like, first off, I'm German. I've always asked myself that. I'm German. I have a guilt complex. I've always asked myself that. Secondly, um, it's just it constantly feels not enough, and I've been reminding myself like there's you're doing what you can right now, and b so many of like the things that had impact we only realized or saw had impact afterwards, and oftentimes after like the people were dead or something. So you can't you're looking at a whole story, and then you're looking at like your rough draft being currently written, and it's just not fair to compare that. So um yeah, I guess that's related to the plagiarism thing, just like a reminder of you need to of course like do what's authentic and aligned with yourself and do things, but also don't and get it inspired, but don't hold yourself to the exact example type space. I think I'm starting to ramble now. I will say if we want another totally natural segment, we could go back to one of the earlier poems we had, because the whole like life is for living and stuff kind of is a little bit aligned to the general long COVID poem I had. So if you want to go there, but you can also like say things more first. I don't want to cut you off here and be hogging all the talking time. I just, yeah,
I mean, again, this is your stream, so I feel like you could just talk forever, and I would be like,
it's your
absolutely, yes.
channel, but it's your channel, so you can also talk forever, and I'll be listening. But
This
yeah,
is true. I am very, very happy for you to, for us to continue this very natural segue into the COVID poem, please.
gotcha. Okay.
Also, I just want to add, I see that we have a few more people watching this. So, hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. We are currently doing a poetry reading.
Great to have you here. Thank you for joining. Another day. Another day. Bleh, sorry. Another day of strangers lecturing me on how I've given up my life for attention while I lay alone in bed unnoticed. Another day of newspapers telling me I'm fine while I'm choking on their propaganda. There is no such thing as long COVID. There are only millions of people who decided one day walking to the restroom by themselves is too much of a hassle, who traded riding a bike for watching dots scatter across their vision, who'd rather lay down with their legs raised so blood may rush back into their brains than walk in the sun with their families. It's a mental illness, really, sudden onset without cause or logic. Millions of people wake up, quit jobs that fulfill them, quit digesting the foods they love, quit looking at screens, watching their favorite shows, so they may be as special as someone struck dead by lightning. That's the story they're selling us until we all go broke. But it's always don't trust the media until the media tells you what you want to hear. Thank you. I need some water.
Okay, while you get hydrated, I would like to put the question to the audience because we can do that. We have the power. I would really, really love to know what that poem made everyone think or what lines resonated with them the most. This is what we've been doing. So I kind of want to continue it because it's really fun. Uh, did you want to say anything about the poem first this time? Because I feel like I've gone
Uh,
first twice now. So
I I like the sentiment, the structure we've had so far, but I can. Why doesn't Amazing Kitten go first? Because I remember this one from the book. It's very good. Thank you. Really shows how ridiculous the situation is. Yeah, that. And I'm just gonna say something to that real quick. That's one of the things I really want to capture in the collection with several of the poems. Just the whole like other, cognitive dissonance, if we want to be nice about it, but other just like what? You know, that feeling. Once again, poetry is about putting feelings and things that aren't really easy to put into words. And I in my journey I've had a lot of what? So I'm glad that that came across in this poem.
My only contribution right now is, yay, I figured out how to show comments on the stream.
That's good too. Yes, that's awesome. I was like, why is it blue? Oh, because it's here now. Hooray. um but yeah, if you want me to talk more, I can. It's just I early on I was posting about more, on Twitter and stuff, and every time I would just get attacked of like, that's not a thing. And still occasionally I bother with stuff in comments, but it's always the same narrative. It's always like, you don't have long COVID, it came from the vaccine. And then you say, I got it before the vaccine. Okay, you don't want to hear that. Cool, fine. And it's just always the same kind of like people attacking you over like your illness. And it's so absurd. And I have like a little bit of, if I'm being gracious, I have a little bit of pity, because I'm like, you are so scared about the possibility that this is a reality, that like, your body is fallible and you could lose everything you have at any moment. And that's just a reality you do not want to face. So you're instead spending your precious time and your energy that you have so much more with, that you could do so much more with an eye, to tell random people on the internet that their illness is fake. And it's just, yeah, absurd and pitiable. We have another comment if you want to pull it up. I love the contrast that it calls to mind between how life dominating it is and how invisible it makes you. Yeah, that's that's also very true. It's just it, that kind of comes together with the whole like, oh, you're doing all the attention and stuff, and you're getting so much benefit, and I'm like, I have disappeared. That was when it started. I went on that like a long story at the beginning to talk about where the collection started. And that's really like the sentiment of that. It's just like I disappeared. I felt like I was not existing anywhere anymore. And that's why it's important, to make our voices heard, because we do still exist. And that's why connecting to each other is important, and like kind of chronic illness community and stuff is important. And I'm going on a tangent. Ella, please stop me before I ramble.
Okay, so I've been thinking of like a couple of things in relation to this poem specifically, and I'm going to explain this probably badly, but earlier this week, I feel like, okay, before I say this, I just want to say like one of the reasons why this collection resonates with me so much is because it really, really effectively and compassionately just completely understands, like, I don't know, like all of these sort of experiences that a lot of chronically ill and disabled people have. And so, like, reading each poem, I'm constantly like, oh, this makes me think of this, it makes me think of this. And I'm like, I have to choose one. I have to, not speak for 17 hours, sadly.
That's next week. No,
Yeah. So the thing that I was thinking about while you were reading and while you were talking is recently on TikTok, I think it was, I saw an advertisement for a new kind of wheelchair. And the reason why this video came up is because one of the disability advocates that I follow had actually like stitched the video, so showed some of the video first and then was speaking about it. And so in the original video, this advertisement, they were talking about the new wheelchairs, and the way that they were speaking about wheelchair users was with the phrase like, oh, now people don't have to just sit in the chair and display their disability.
oh.
And it was just kind of like, do you think that's what people using mobility aids do, is they use the mobility aids because they want to display that they are disabled? Like, what is this? I don't understand. And so alongside the part of this poem that is about how invisible being chronically ill makes you, I also feel like the satire is extremely effective. And yeah, this sort of idea of like, oh yeah, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, their bowels just decided to stop working. Like, but it's nothing serious, you know, like, oh yeah, this thing is going on, but it's just mental illness, you know. It's barely an inconvenience, but then also when you complain about it, it's like, oh well, that's fake. And yeah, so I'm just kind of like, I think I will start rambling soon because I'm like, oh, there are just all
Just
of these
into that
narratives.
topic. Yeah. I want to say real quick, the wheelchair. Oh gosh, this makes me want to write. See, I'm gonna put it in my note, Evan room, and this totally makes me want to write like a love poem to my wheelchair because, oh my god, it is so much freedom and like yeah, but that is god. I even had like I saw this also on TikTok the other day. This whole that people always want to push you when you're in your wheelchair because they want to be like the good Samaritan. They're doing a good deed. Um, and the comments were full of like this never happens, and I'm like, you're not in a wheelchair. How would you know? This happens like all the time. Goddamn. But also, thank you, love. I will write a poem about that. But also, when you were saying like, oh yeah, it's just mental illness. This is also something that really upsets me because you have physical illness. You go like, oh no, physical illness is just mental illness, and then mental illness you have like mental illness. No, that's nothing. That should you just should just ignore. And it's like, wait, they're both debilitating. Um, and yeah, it's just this whole track of making it all disappear, because you don't want to deal with it, you don't want to face that reality, and that's what ableism does. It tries to make us disappear, but we are defiant and stubborn, and we shall not.
That's right, we are defiant and stubborn. And I will, this made me also think, I think I said this to you like a couple of weeks ago. I was like, what ableism does is like when people are ableist, they will just refuse to see disability. Um,
Hmm.
and so like that was in the context of like, oh, even in fantasy worlds where there's healing magic, right, disability would still have to exist because ableism is not just going to magically go away. Even if magical healers could completely heal you and make you able-bodied, disability would still exist, I believe, because not all of the healers are going to actually see and acknowledge disability and diagnose it in the first place. And
Yep.
this is like another one of the things that this poem made me think about is because there is the disability denial going on. And then it also made me think of another conversation that you and I have both had, but also it came up again for me recently was like under our current ableist structures, right? You're too disabled for some things, but then on the other hand, you're also considered not disabled enough for other things. And so it's constantly like this balancing act of trying to convince people to take you seriously, but then also trying to convince people to, I don't know, not take it so seriously that they are thinking that you are completely, you know, incapable of doing things. And it's bananas.
But
But again,
I'm
the poem, amazing.
that's the whole conversation we have right now about autism though too, isn't it? There's the whole like, no, 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 no. Autistic people are not that disabled, they can still do that. And it's like, wait, but we are too disabled too. And it's just like this whole no, no, this whole discussion is inherently fraud because it doesn't matter, we believe the person when they tell us what they're able to do and what not. The rest is accessibility needs. And also none of it defines our worth. And let's not debate fascists about how specifically disabled we are or not. We don't need to go down that whole dark route, but that made me think of that while you were, yeah. And also real quick, Noelle wrote that it's a fascinating take on magical healing, and it is. And I also want to take this moment real quick again to tell you all about maybe you can um, lift it up again about the wonderful anthology that Ella put together, Artifice or Artifice and Access. You don't have to put it. It's okay.
Sorry.
Which is a disability and fantasy anthology, and their story in it is actually very much about that, about the whole like, magical healing exists, so you shouldn't be disabled, and it's a really beautiful story. It's I think the second to last one. It's a beautiful like button at the end, and there's so many great stories about that too. So like, yeah, I personally included some magical healing as in once again like medicine. That oh yes, exactly, the girl and the gum riddle, which is a great title by the way. Love it. Anyway, I don't want to
Thank you.
put us too far away from the poetry, but like I just wanted to say again because we're talking about magic healing and stuff, and like yeah, yeah. I don't remember what the next poem is that we had put aside. Oh, Love and Light. That's a great one after talking about fascism.
That was the
So,
one I was sitting here like, oh, I can come up with a really good segue again, but yes,
oh,
please.
sorry. Do you want to segue us? Because like
Oh, no,
actually,
because I feel like in the course of the conversation, I was like, oh, it sounds like what we need is some love and light right now. And then you would jump into it.
okay, but actually, because so here's the thing. Part of why I like was so reckless with my health early on and was so much like buying the why I was listening to my doctor being like, "Oh, you should, do more yoga and like push through the depression and stuff." When I was actually starting to develop chronic fatigue and completely wreck my body, was because I was in kind of the manifestation cult world. Like I was super brainwashed in the new age stuff, and this poem is kind of about that, but the whole love and light thing is actually a form of the magical healing. Like it's fine. No problem in the world is bad enough. You just need some love and light. So yeah, and shockingly, it has not fixed world hunger, war, or disease yet. Um,
I
I
am
know,
truly shaken by this. I
super
cannot believe
shaken.
it.
Should we take the question first before I read, or should I?
Do you want to take the question first? We can absolutely do that.
Yeah, let's do that first because we'll probably go into a different conversation afterwards. Had
Cool.
one main. Sorry, should I be reading it? You're the host. I don't want to step over you.
Okay, I'll just read this one, but feel free to read them in the future. I really don't mind. Okay, so Amazing Kitten has said they have one main question. Whenever it fits, right now. Congratulations. So they said, I felt there was a lot of intimacy and personal details to some of the poems. How did you get the courage to put something so vulnerable of the soul out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first off, I've kind of always been a little bit like I don't want to pat myself on the shoulders too much, but I've always been a little bit like something scares me, then I need to do it fast before I think about it. And this definitely had a little bit of that vibe. Um, that being said, writing from the beginning when I really started it and when I started working on my first book, felt a lot more personal than acting or anything else I'd done, and it felt incredibly vulnerable. Fiction too feels incredibly vulnerable because you put pieces of yourself in there, um, and it was a mixture. So it did not come easy or fast. It was a mixture of the journey of creating this collection was refinding myself after spending months of just pandering to one person I was really close with, just and just supporting him through everything and just uplifting his work. And yeah, I still feel nervous talking about this too because like that feels, I don't want to slander anyone, but like I I didn't have any courage to just kind of stand for my own things. And for years, when I started becoming more aware of the world and more intersectional and stuff, I started realizing how much I was holding myself back. And I didn't think I could become me, like who I am today. And, people like Ella, I would be like, wow, they're so cool. I am never going to like talk like that, or, but I, so it was a very slow process, but little by little, it started with this whole like spite and defiance of like, no, I need to find my voice again. So I wrote the first part. I wrote a lot of it kind of with a okay, I'm just expressing some rage at sexism and ableism and that kind of stuff. And I wrote a lot of the first part in rage, in anger, and trying to like reclaim actually the emotions I had, but not really thinking about publishing it. And then part of why I had the courage to publish this, or why I had the courage to submit that, was because I hadn't been able to create anything else, and I hadn't been able to create anything safe. So I was kind of like, and I was so pissed off and like abandoned by the world that I'm like, well, the world's like that really that helped. make me not care so much about people's opinions, because I'm like, well, it's becoming increasingly you know, apparent that people do not care about me, my safety, or my existence. And um I thankfully it's less so in Berlin, but in New York where I was, it was starting to get like New Jersey, New York, it was starting to get bad where like every, I don't know, third time I was out with the wheelchair and mask, I'd get yelled at. And like people genuinely was just angry at my existence. And I'm sure it's even worse now. But and that kind of helped a little bit, because I'm like, I don't want to be pandering to those people. Like, why these people already hate me. So so yeah, it's kind of a mixture of all of that. And then actually publishing it, though, I think one of the ways I took courage was really, I came up with my pen name, which then became like my social name too. I'm kind of like, I'm semi transitioned. I'm transitioned with like friends and everything. I'm on like low T and stuff, but I'm not. I haven't really dealt with doctors and governments and stuff yet. I'm not sure if I want to. Um, but having that kind of like private life, and I lost. Sorry, this is rambling. I actually lost my Instagram account that I had built up with my whole writing stuff, and it was great because I still can't make a new Instagram account for some reason. I'm blocked, and it also gave me freedom. So I kind of just, I lost everything, and like general world was so negative towards me, and I could start off with a new name and start off with like, and I was just kind of, I didn't feel as watched anymore, and I'm still not really sharing it with people I know like a long time and stuff. I'm kind of building my own like online world and stuff, and my, my new friends who are understanding these things and topics. But I separated all the people that, like, family members and whatnot, that still mean a lot to me, but like do not get this away from this, so I could just actually be truthful and allow my voice to come out more. And it's still a process. And I kind of also did it because I really want to write a memoir about this whole thing, and like, and part social critique, part memoir. And it's still in the process. It's currently in editing. But I've been like, okay, this is going to be my trial run. If I can be brave enough to do this, then maybe I'm able to actually like write and publish that too. So yeah, I guess this is a long, complex answer of, it was not easy. It took years, and societal abandonment and starting your life from scratch and basically disappearing and reappearing as a new person helped. Though I would love to like throw that question actually at Ella as well, because you're also like writing about a lot of very vulnerable things, and being proudly disabled and great advocates. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for throwing the question to me as well.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm not sure. It depends on how
No,
prepared.
definitely a thank you. I feel like though you kind of, though we don't have like exactly the same experiences, like for example, I do not have like I am only just now kind of having conversations with friends about gender stuff. So I don't have that kind of aspect of things going on. But definitely for me, it's kind of a lot of the same stuff of like feeling and literally being abandoned by the world, right? Like constantly being told like, if you die, we consider you an acceptable loss. Like you are not of the same value and import as, you know, everyone else who is able-bodied. And that has been incredibly heartbreaking and like still continues to be heartbreaking. Um, I really don't want to give it credit, right? Like I really don't like the quote, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because like as someone who has been through a lot of stuff, I'm like, actually, what didn't kill me gave me a lot of trauma and I had to deal with that, and that really sucks. Granted, yes, it does make me good at, I don't know, being compassionate, I guess, but it's like I probably could have learned that a different way. This is another, that's a tangent. However, what I am saying is like, yeah, the societal abandonment and stuff, as much as it is heartbreaking and stuff, I do feel like it has opened the door for me to like feel a lot of emotions. And so yeah, like whenever like one time when I was at the shopping center, I'm wearing a KN95 like I do as always because I can't get COVID. Otherwise, I could get be further disabled or I could die. You know, oh no, Ella wants to stay alive. How dare she?
Right?
Like a couple of times I have been yelled at. I have had people go out of their way to walk in front of me and cough in my face. Like there are a lot of
Mhm.
things like that that have happened that have made me feel really shitty. And then I'm just like, I have all of these feelings inside of me and I have all of these like words that I want to say, but I obviously can't stalk that person and have a conversation with them and resolve this. Like that's just not going to happen. So I do feel like that has a like words and writing has allowed me to not only process the emotions but also like convey ideas that I think a lot of us are feeling. And yeah, so it is every time I publish a Substack that talk about anything personal, anytime I write a story that features disability in a way that feels very similar to my life, I'm constantly feeling so scared. Um, I'm just a scaredy cat of a person. Everyone who knows me knows that about me. I am scared all the time, but there is also a bit of a spite fire in me that is like, yeah, people don't like me anyway. People don't want me around anyway. I might as well make a mess while I'm here. And you know, what I guess I have this question also of like, why does everyone else get to be so comfortable with engaging in passive eugenics, for example, but I have to be uncomfortable all the time. I'm kind of growing into a person who is like, you know what, if someone is, making me feel like I don't deserve to be here, then I'm not going to soothe their feelings. And so that's kind of where I think that bravery comes from is just the anger and the sort of like this revolutionary idea of we deserve to take up space and we deserve to be here too. Um, Also, just lastly, I just really think like when I was younger, I constantly asked myself the question like, who would I be if I'd had, you know, someone in my life that knew better than me and had all these different ideas of disability, right? So like they weren't ableist, or they knew when something was ableist, so we could call it out or unlearn it and stuff. And so I think I am not so bold as to be like, one day someone will look up to me, but it is kind of like I am trying to be the
I already
person
look
I
up to you.
needed as a kid. That's too kind because I look up to you as well.
Well then, we're both standing on some weird towers.
There's something fishy going on here where we're the same height but also looking up.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, it is kind of this idea of like I want to be the person that I needed back then, the person that I would have looked up to. And so yeah, it is vulnerable. But
I love
I
that.
don't know. I just think it's something we have to do, right? Like yeah.
And funny enough, this actually I feel like is a really good segment to a different poem to the one that we weren't going to read. But as we're talking about spite, the whole like my disabled body well done combo, I feel like would be good to read here because it's kind of a has a bit of that energy of like what the world wants us to be versus, you know, what we can be. So I'm just gonna be shamelessly plugging my well, yeah, this is my stream about my poetry collection. I guess I can shamelessly plug this poetry collection I wrote. So shameless. Okay. Okay, wait, let me find it. I'm sorry. Also, thank you, Amazing Kitten. I read the response as well, and I appreciate that. Where is it? Hey. Oh, right. Undid the. I took it out. No. Okay. 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 I will find it. There it is. Okay. My disabled body. Bury my body quickly so you can use it to fertilize the earth. Turn me into grass, like you did with the lands you stole. Don't let me become a vegetable, an herb. My body isn't meant to nourish anything but a man's eye. Grow me into flowers. They are much easier to look at. Flowers don't demand you change. Cut them, trample them, let them wilt. Their blossoms will still be pretty. I am no longer pretty. So what rights does my disabled body have to be alive, to thrive, as a fleshy, struggling mess when it could be a flower? Every right. I'm no longer pretty. What a loss to society. And then, sort of in response to that, the next poem is, well then, if billionaires get to burn down Earth, I can be a vaudevillian elf boy. If fire is all we got, we will damn well dance in it. So, yeah, I just felt like that was corresponded really well with the whole, like, disabled people don't want to see disabled people. Like, we're not meant to be seen, and it's like, yeah, we should just be flowers. And yes, it's one of Noel's favorites, so it's happy that we read it. But it just felt very um on point, on topic.
It really does feel on topic. I almost wish this stream were like a live react to the poetry collection because I just have so many thoughts about each line and what it makes me think of. And this is, yes, it's my channel, so I'm just gonna freely give out compliments the whole time. But it's like, I I know I said this earlier, I think, in the stream when we were talking about accessibility, but one of the things that I'm really loving is how not only the language being accessible, but also like so many of the ideas and the experiences that we've probably both had, or if anyone else is chronically ill or disabled in the chat right now, we've all probably had. I feel like you capture them so well, and also it's so incredibly easy to read, you know, uh, experiences that we've had into these poems. So, for example, the opening stanza, bury my body quickly so you can use it to fertilize the earth. Given what we were just talking about, about how people devalue disabled lives and see us as acceptable losses, that feels so directly related because it feels like, again, there's this sort of implication, right, of like if your body is fertilizing the earth, then it's like, well, you're better off dead than alive. Like, you'd be more useful to us dead than as a living person who just doesn't fit the norm. And so, like, that straight away just like hits me um, in the heart. And I really, really love the. I don't know if you still have the book open there on the poem, but I really love the structural choice of where you ask the question, so what right does my disabled body have to be alive, to thrive as a fleshy, struggling mess when it could be a flower? And then every right is in italics and within parentheses as its own line or stanza. And I just, as a admitted poetry not knower, I don't know what to call myself. That really, I find that really, really great. And then also obviously the way that you tie it into like a second poem, and they're both in very direct conversation with each other, but they also work incredibly well on their own. Just all the compliments, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, the just real quick, the formatting thing actually. I feel like that's coming actually from my acting like background, because we've learned so much in, like, reading plays and whatnot, that um so much of the rhythm of the language and whatnot, so much of like how things are actually performed are in these little formatting decisions and stuff. So I use a lot of italics and parentheses of things that are more like whispered and that are more like, you know the other voice coming in and stuff. And in the poem next to it, it's the only poem where the title has a period, so it's well then period, because it just, like, periods in acting are such a, like, this is where the thought ends and this is where, like, the statement is made. And I wanted to, like, play with that a little bit too. So once again, like, I don't have a big poetry background either, but I'm bringing in these, like, theater background things of, like, wanting to complete the thought, because it just it makes things more rhythmic for me and makes, like, points stronger. So yeah, I'm glad that it's coming across well.
I also, just like off the back of that, I would like to highlight Noelle's comment about how this pair of poems is such a statement on the message of the book, because I so completely agree, especially with the conversation we just had about, you know, how have you, like, how are you being so vulnerable, like what did you do to ready yourself to be this vulnerable. I feel like the title of the second poem being well then with a period just completely captures it, right? Because it's like, well then, if you don't like me, I'm just gonna do my own thing.
Yeah, yeah. And like it wasn't easy to get there. That Well Done is actually one of the last poems I wrote. Because like the first draft of that had all she heard from me and the whole thing, and then I just like did not touch these for a while as I was trying to figure myself out. So like it's a journey. It's a journey. This was one of the last ones. So yeah. Um, should we go to Love and Light, or I don't have a segment anymore.
Yeah, so let's go to Love and Light. I Somebody told me you had a poem called Love and Light. A bird a
Yes.
bird told me.
Yes, you know those German Australian birds that just fly back and forth to talk about poetry.
Yeah. Also, this is really, well, it's not random because we're talking about it right now, but I am curious all of a sudden. Do you in German have a phrase like a little bird told me, or is it just exactly that?
So, okay, this is a fun thing about bilingual thing. When people ask me about like, do you have a phrase like that, or if I'm thinking of a phrase, I 70% of the time do not remember if it's a phrase in one language or the other.
Yeah.
Because like especially at this point, like I'm German. I moved away when I was 18, and I've been moved back like 2 years ago. um so I spend a lot of my time talking English, and I'm also talking English at home all the time because Noelle is American. um yeah, I think it's a little bird tweeted me.
That's cute.
I think so. I think so, but I could just be translating the English one. Who knows? I sometimes do that in English too, where I say, Noel can attest to that, where I say like something, and then it's it's like wait, no, I think that was a German saying. So hard to say. After that, like delightful little conversation, love and light. How many times have you screamed into the void today? None? Oh, you are one of the blissful many who protect their hearts from feeling, who let caviar dissolve on their tongue and believe this is what intimacy tastes like, who are too busy raising their vibrations to notice the earthquakes, who pack their suitcases and flee the summer, flee the winter, flee the pool. If Orpheus had just kept going without looking back, without seeing the blood on the tracks, hell would have disappeared. For him at least. And that is enough for you, isn't it? You don't scream into the void. You don't fight it either. You don't pull your fellow humans out of its clutches and burn those who make the whole world sink. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. In that case, my thoughts and prayers for when you open your eyes and only the void is left. Talk about being defiant and stubborn.
Yes. Also, just the what I'm thinking about right now is how the title is Love and Light, uh, and yet the actual content of the poem feels so incredibly hard hitting and just like you're talking about hell and the void and all of that sort of stuff. And I find that juxtaposition super, super interesting. And I was going to say fun. I'm not sure that's the word that I really want to go with, but just I appreciate it on like a craft level. Um, and uh, one of the things that, or the areas or parts of this poem that really strikes me is as a autistic woman who was absolutely obsessed with Greek mythology growing up and like Roman mythology and uh, Egyptology. I had those like kids books. I feel like some people will know what I mean with the metallic cover and they had like illustrations and little
Yeah,
texture things we could touch.
yeah,
Um,
I actually think I have that too here.
that's amazing. I love that this is like it crosses oceans. It does not adhere to borders. But the thing that I really love is the stanza about Orpheus and this idea that if he just kept going without looking back, then hell would have disappeared for him, and that being enough for some people absolutely hits me just like straight in the chest. Because the obvious thing I'm thinking about having a Grinch with a KN95 mask on his face is this idea, right? That like, let's see if I can articulate this effectively, but Orpheus surviving is enough for some people, And it's sort of like the same sentiment I feel when it comes to like COVID and masking, right? Where it's like, oh, well, if the strongest survive, like that's good. We all have to get back to normal. Anyone who gets left in hell, that's,
Mhm.
you know, where they belong, or that, like, that's an acceptable thing to have happen. And so again, like, I just feel like I'm kind of repeating myself after every poem. But yeah, again, I feel like this really strikes at the heart of like so many of our experiences, and that's what makes it like so moving and emotional to me. I actually started to tear up at the Orpheus part, and then I controlled myself, and then also I was like, oh my god, it's called Love and Light, and it's like, then I was, yeah. So that's my ramble. Did you have like specific thoughts, or like a story behind this poem?
First off, I very much love making people cry, so that makes me happy in a good way, in a good way. Um, but yeah, that makes me super happy. And also once again, it's all I wanted to give words to our experiences. So this is incredibly, wonderful to hear. About the love and light though, uh, so that phrase actually kind of became a really violent phrase for me because it's such a core of this whole manifestation world. It's just like, love and light, we're light workers, and there's this whole thing of like in this law of attraction stuff, which by the way is like a big chunk of the whole memoir thing. So that's a whole thing to get through. But in this whole law of attraction world, you have this whole, if you engage with negativity, then you're manifesting it into your life and you're getting into your life. And instead you need to, love and light and just choose that. And I was so stuck in that when I first got sick, and I was trying so hard to fulfill that I just consistently had this huge feeling of failure and of not being enough, because I was like, but I am just focusing on positive things. Why am I getting sicker? I'm just focusing on positive things. I'm doing happy thoughts. I'm doing like all of this stuff. And this was really all that was given to me in response for that, this whole love and light thing. So I kind of, in this poem, like, yeah, hell and void and stuff is all dark, but it's also real. And I feel like this disconnect to reality, in which you're experiencing something but are telling yourself something else, is kind of worse than living through hell itself. And so like I don't know, it has this whole contrast of like, yeah, I was told this whole love and light thing, but this is how reality looked like for me. And actually the love and light is worse than that. I don't know if that makes sense, but like that's where kind of this poem came from. This one and inspirational quotes, they're both around this whole experience of like trying to think myself well and stuff. And it's just actually, obviously it just puts ginormous blame on the disabled person and on marginalized people and stuff. And just this, it's another way of saying like, no, it's your own fault, so we don't have to worry about it, and it's not going to happen to me because I wouldn't let it happen to me. And that whole thing of I wouldn't let it happen to me, and then I just got indoctrinated over and over with this whole like, I am letting this happen to me. And this is why the poem, like the whole, hell is still there even if Orpheus doesn't look back, is actually comforting to me, because it's like, no, I'm not, too weak to walk away from it. I am just not Orpheus. um yeah.
And not only are you not Orpheus, it's like the, like, I don't know, the very foundation of it is I'm really struggling to articulate this. I had the thought in my brain, and now I'm like, oh no, I have to translate into verbal words. Um, but it's like in Orpheus's story, right? Like you have gods and stuff, and like all of the magic and stuff is real. And so there is kind of like this element of like, oh, maybe love and light can conquer,
Mhm.
things, but we live in the real world, sadly. And love and light just doesn't quite cut it. No amount of live, laugh, love is going to cure a disability or a chronic illness. And I just find it so like frustrating and heartbreaking and sad that that is such a common like sentiment, and I think it ties into a lot of what we've already spoken about of like feeling invisible also, right? Because it's kind of like the whole idea is that you are trying to think your way out of something very real, and so you're kind of denying that aspect of your lived experience, and so you kind of become complicit in the invisibilizing of it. And like yeah, I'm just, my brain is like it's like rushing way too fast with all of the thoughts, but yeah, everything you've said, absolutely.
And to jump off on that, I this is not in the collection. This is actually in the memoir, but I kind of compared it a little bit to this whole of it's like you can deny the fact that we have nights that like it gets dark, and then you can just walk against a bunch of stuff and whatnot and just be terrified, but also telling yourself no, everything's normal. Or you can accept that half of the time we don't have lights, and in a lot of ways that sucks, but you can find beautiful things in it. You can, turn on candles and whatnot, have movie nights, and you can create something new in it. And that doesn't make it, you know, not scary or not bad, but it also like makes it something beautiful in its own right. And I feel that way about disability a lot too, because on the one hand, like, yeah, it does suck. Chronic illness does suck. But at the same time, if we actually believe in it, if we actually embrace it and meet ourselves in it, we can then find a lot of like beautiful things in it. And like, it's just like meeting lovely people who are going through the same experiences and stuff like that. And that's that's the thing where it's like, the real world's like, on the one hand, yeah, we have to just live in it, otherwise it just causes so much more pain. But on the other hand too, there is a lot of potential in actually embracing hardships, because then we can find good things within those hardships instead of just trying to not engage with it and pretend it's not there. So yeah, just
I
bounce off
think
on that.
yeah, on I had too many thoughts. I'm just kind of thinking about like the acknowledgement of one's reality and of one's lived experience, and like what you said about, even if Orpheus didn't turn back, hell would still be there. That being like a comforting sort of thought for you makes so much sense to me, because I think there is, as much as it might be difficult and as much as it might suck in like so many ways, I do think there is some inherent like empowerment in believing yourself and believing what you are going through and validating your own experiences. And I am sure like heaps of disabled people have probably gone through a similar thing of like the experience I'm thinking of now specifically is the time where my rheumatologist was like, okay, yeah, I think you have hypermobile EDS, but why do you want a diagnosis? And it was kind of like, well, this is the thing that I live with that like affects me in so many different ways. Like, this isn't about just getting like a pretty little label on my medical file. It's not like I get a gold sticker. It's like this will actually, it makes it real, not only to me but to other people, and it like informs the amount of care I'm entitled to and all of that sort of stuff. And so I think yeah, like the realness, you know, of it all is incredibly comforting, even though like especially at the beginning it might be, especially confronting and difficult. But I really love that this is kind of the uh, feels really weird to say the vibe on such a like serious topic, but also at the same time, I do feel like there is also value in like being a little bit silly and goofy around these like serious topics, right? So yeah, I don't know if anything I just said made sense, but it's definitely
Totally.
giving me a lot to think about.
Totally. Actually, I mean, that's why one of the poems is called "I'm Done Hating My Body," because that was the moment where, like, that was a moment I got to on the journey after a while where I'm like, no, I want to accept this, and my body itself is trying. I mean, okay, I can still be like, oh, my uterus is killing me and stuff, but like in general, my body is trying, and I don't hate it for it. It's not. its fault that it's sick, and it's not my fault that I'm sick. And I want to make peace with it because I do not have the energy to constantly be at war with myself. And it's such a like pointless usage of the limited energy we do have. So, and this is kind of what I feel like so many people, so many able-bodied people and ableist people want us to do. Like they want us to constantly be at war with ourselves, and it's like, no, I have better things to do. And on like in one example is I do often get asked, and I have to always explain it of like, well, why aren't you walking more? And I walk at home when I can, which is most days nowadays. But I use a wheelchair outside because, and I also don't, do like an exercise a day because the exercise usually would put me in a flare for the next day. But even like a full, longer, very simple exercise, I'm kind of like, well, I've learned now that I have limited energy spoons, and I cognitive ones, mental ones, and physical ones both use the same amount of energy. And I have, I have a career I'm trying to put together. I have words I want to write. I have like friends I want to connect with. And I understand that it would look better to you if I spent every day like walking around the block, but I'd much rather use that energy not doing something that I know is not going to do much for my body other than exhausted, and instead do something for my soul during that time. So it's kind of in the same vein.
Absolutely, I completely agree with all of that. And I'm gonna hold back from my little rant about like the,
No,
oh, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just do that? And it's kind of
you
like, well, you
fail,
see,
rant.
it's just, oh my god, I have so many thoughts about sort of like people's ideas of what you should be doing, right? And this idea that exercise is kind of like this cure-all thing, like, and if you're still disabled or you can't do it, then you must not be trying hard enough. And also like, um, you can say like, if I do that, it will tire me out and then I can't function at all. And then they will not believe you. And then it's like one of the kind of conversations I've had several times throughout the last, handful of years is like, okay, but if I go to yoga and if I do physio and if I do all of these things, throughout the week, then how am I meant to work? Like, don't you capitalists want me to be working? Like, don't you think that's what makes me useful to society and a productive human, right? And so it's kind of like, well, if you want me to work, you're going to have to choose between whether I do a sport or I show up in the workplace. So yeah, I just have like a lot of thoughts and feelings about that because ableism doesn't make sense. Like bigotry doesn't make sense. It's not rooted in any kind of logic or fact at all. And so like with ableism, like there are all of these inherent contradictions or like uh, contradicting expectations or things that society wants you to do and fulfill and be, but you simply can't be all of those things all the time, and most able-bodied people can't be all of those things all the time. So yeah, extremely frustrating. But I mean, one of the good things we get is amazing poetry and the chance to have really good conversations about it.
I mean, ableism is basically like, nope, you're not there. Like that's, yeah, in a nutshell. But thank you again. Um, yeah.
I
So
am
yeah,
sorry, I was just going to say that I really, really want you to read the poem Furby because that one is one of my favorites.
maybe as the last one.
How many have we done tonight? I feel like we've been very, very good.
Yeah, I think so too. We have these years of ill we didn't get to, but I like pushed that one in last minute anyway, so I think that's fine. And I didn't actually read during my intro shared suffering, but that's okay. People will just have to buy the book, which is currently out in ebook and hopefully will be soon out in paperback and hardcover. I don't know why it's not. Hopefully in a few days it will be. Oh my goodness, the door. Love, do something. um, okay.
Also, I'll just add. Can I add really quickly? The
I don't
like
want to
link,
well open.
The link to Casper's poetry collection will be in the description, and then I'll probably post it in the comments as well, and just make sure that it's absolutely everywhere so you can't possibly miss where to buy it, because you should.
Thank you. And on that note too, during the first month, so my publisher has a special like pre-order package too, but I want to do something small myself as well. So you order it and send me a proof of like receipt, proof of receipt, proof of payment, I think. So it's called. I'll send you a bookmarks and a little thank you note. So, um, in case that's in what's the word in incitement
Incentive?
incentive. Yes, exactly. But yeah, okay. The door is closed again. Furby, let me actually say something about it real quick. So unfortunately, it wasn't possible because of copyright reasons. But I actually wanted to have a Furby with a mask on the cover because of that poem. So theoretically, that was supposed to be the cover idea. But we went with leopard, based on the like anaphylaxis poem. I think anaphylactic daydreams is what it's called. But I should know the poems. I know the names of my poems. But yeah. So Furby. Sometimes I fear COVID has turned me into a Furby. Cute once, exciting once. You pay way too high a price to get your fingers on it. But then, oh, the neediness, the constant problems, always on the verge of starving, always on the verge of dying. But you'd feel so guilty if you abandoned it. I abandoned my first Furby decades ago, gave it to my grandma to keep alive. Sometimes I fear I'll abandon this one too. This is a very dark poem to end on, but yeah.
It feels weird to like applaud such a like poem, but
Yay!
I'm
But
also
also,
like, yay.
no, but yeah, I'm glad it resonated so much with you. Yeah, you want to share about that? You don't need to praise me, but like I would love to hear your perspective.
Oh my god, my perspective is just like I'm a chronic sad girl, woman. Um, I don't know. I've just always been a sad person, maybe. And I don't mean sad like pitiful or whatever. I mean like genuinely like sadness seems to be one of my like core default emotions, weirdly. And so also as someone who has and both how do I say this, like is like still struggling with suicidal ideation. So I won't like talk about that too much, not because I'm afraid of being vulnerable or whatnot, but I just don't want to like I don't know, potentially say something that might be triggering or uncomfortable. But basically, as someone who like experiences that, when I read that poem, I was like, especially like the end about like abandoning your first Furby decades ago, and fearing that you'll abandon this one too. I was like, this just really hits me, because I also often have kind of thoughts about like, oh, I'm scared something will happen to me, or I'm scared something will happen to me, and then I will make like a terrible forever choice, is what I will call it. And yeah, so that just felt very, very intensely like the poem for me, which is I uh, why it is my favorite. And um, yeah, I don't know. There's just like
Yeah.
something about it all that really, uh, just like from the first, the get go, I was like, oh, this is about me.
Well, obviously I relate. But yeah, I mean this constant kind of pull of suicidal ideation type thing. There's definitely a good chunk of poems that play with that because it is like I think it's a real. I mean, our bodies are messed up, right? And it's both the trauma from all of that, and then also just the genuine reality that when a body is messed up in ways, it's going to give you bad signals, and that is one of the bad signals that will happen. And uh, yeah, it's another subject. It's hard to talk about. It's true, but I think one of the things I do want to say here is that like so many people have this whole attitude of like, if I were chronically ill or if something would happen to me, I would just kill myself. And that's something we hear so often. And it's kind of like the super nice version of it, but it's still the same sentiment. It's like, oh my god, you're so brave. And it's like, I'm so brave for surviving. And it is this, we are constantly making the choice to be like, no, actually we are, you know, we are deciding to keep going, we are choosing ourselves, and this is a difficult existence and we're choosing it anyway because we believe in ourselves or life or things to be done. And like, I hate this whole, you know, you're so strong, but because they also don't understand it correctly. But like, it is, I think it's something that I feel like people don't talk enough about, this whole constant draw to that kind of ideation space, and also how like it's just the same as enduring pain and fatigue. It's like it's it's something that says a lot about the verisimilitude, my god, perseverance of disabled people, and how much like how much we actually have to give, that we're giving ourselves this kind of thing all the time of, yeah, defiance and choosing to, you know, survive. And yeah, choosing to survive, that's the thing. I think it's not, it's and honestly, with the title, I think we're allowed to talk about it. But I for a lot of people, able-bodied people, I feel like survival is just not a choice, it's just something that happens. And for us, it's a conscious choice, and that makes it precious in a way too, and hard in other ways.
Yeah, I agree with like all of that. And I really, really wish I had a better brain to like remember all of the thoughts that I had while you were talking. But especially like with survival being an active choice all the time, I also feel like it's an active fight a lot of the time. Which they're probably, I'm probably being a little bit redundant here because I do think they're like very interrelated, right? Like you can't, it's not a choice if you don't fight. So anyway, but basically I do feel like that's like a huge difference between able-bodied people and like disabled people and even people of like other marginalized identities, right? Is like you are constantly coming up against things in this world that were not built for you and do not welcome you and do not want you there, and a lot of the time even actively trying to push you out and remove you and stop you from existing. And so it's kind of like, yeah, survival very much is in and of itself for a lot of us an act of defiance, and it is a really big choice. um, Let me see if I can remember the brainworm that I had while you were talking. I feel like it's gone. um,
I do want to say real quick that I do think it being a choice in the fight are different things, because choice is more like, I mean, like they can be the same, but I feel like it's also, choice is like, yeah, we're not choosing the, I don't want to say choose the easy way out. That's horrible. But like, we're not, you know, we are actively choosing the difficult thing. But then also, sometimes it is a genuine fight. Like, it genuinely is like, choosing is not enough. It has to be a, okay, buckle in, pull out the metaphorical sword and charge type thing. So, yeah.
I'm glad you said that because, like, yes, you are correct.
No, you are correct because you said it. I was
We're
just,
both correct.
yay.
um, but like this, like leads me to thinking about like the social model of disability. I remembered what I was going to say, and it was like attached to this whole sentiment that a lot of us have heard of, like, oh well, if I was that disabled, you know, I would just end myself, and all that. I feel like as I've like educated myself about the different modes and models of disability, especially like the social model. So for anyone who's not familiar, the social model is all about how, um, you know, the world around you and our society disables you in lots of different ways. And so you can be someone who has an impairment or is impaired, but you know, because of, for example, there are only stairs to get into the building, you know, you are disabled, right? Like you are not able to enter the building. So there's like that mode of disability, and I often think of that in relation to this sentiment of like, oh well, if I was that disabled, I would just end my life, because I'm like, please do something about that right now. Like you are so close to understanding the point of like being disabled does kind of suck, but it's not because you're disabled necessarily. It's a lot of the time because the world around us does not, make it easy, and in fact actively makes it harder a lot of the time. And so I kind of want to grab people by the collar and be like, you're almost getting it. Like um that kind
Yes.
of thing. Yeah, and I'm like, because it doesn't have to be this tragedy, it doesn't have to be this horrible, sad, difficult experience. Like, yes, when you are someone who has something that causes a lot of long-term pain and like all of that sort of stuff, there are obvious, not just chronic pain, to be clear, but like, there are lots of different things that do impact us, in ways that are frustrating and sad and annoying sometimes. um, but like there are also a lot of ways that we can live whole and fulfilling lives, and access society, if only society would allow us. And so yeah, especially like in the context of Furby the poem, like, and speaking like from a personal perspective, I guess, like a lot of the things that drive or prompt my like ideation habits are when I am suffering because of something about the world. And so it's
Mhm.
not, that I'm like, oh no, I'm disabled, you know, I better go see what the afterlife is like. It's more, oh no, I couldn't go to this event that I was invited to because no one is masking and there's one window in the entire building. And everyone is open mouth breathing on each other. And it's like things like that will happen that really make me go, oh, maybe I'm better off not being here. But it's like, no, the truth is the opposite, right?
You
Like,
deserve to be included, and
yeah.
we people aren't doing it naturally, which sucks. But that's why we're fighting to be more included. And
Yep.
yeah, because yeah, exactly. And I mean that brings us actually full circle, which is good because I do feel my brain slightly slagging, so I don't think I can do much longer. But that brings us back to the beginning of this because once again it started like the next the next poem after that is full on like suicide planning. But it started from a place of I don't think I can survive, and then I started writing this. And I was in that place because I just felt like, so severely abandoned by everything and just erased. And we can't, no one can exist if they feel like they don't matter at all. They don't matter to anyone, they don't matter to the world. And like ableism and eugenics is actively, consistently trying to instill that in us. So it takes active work when it really shouldn't be, to undo that harm in ourselves. And more people, able-bodied people, should do this work too, so it doesn't all fall on us. But while it falls on us, um, there is the beautiful thing that we do have each other and more people who've been in similar experiences, and that's part of what saved me too. Like finding people on TikTok to follow and seeing like, oh, okay, life isn't just not over. I still matter too. And funny enough, like not to distract from this, but that's kind of what's how we met too. That's what the my short story in Artifice and Axis is about too. It's this whole like, okay, your life is over, you have to wait while you're sick, you can just be in a dark room, Rapunzel style in a tower locked away. And it's like, no, these limitations are real and they're hard and there's grief and all of that, but it the world can always include you still. And if the world doesn't, then there's going to be people who will include you and who will love you. And it is worth fighting for yourself until you meet them and then fighting together.
I literally could not have said any of that better. And I just want to like, oh, do I want to be sappy right now? Because I feel kind of like in like a bit of a like sappy mood, but um, because we're talking about like the loneliness of like the world not being a very welcoming place, right? And how difficult that can be. And so I just kind of want to on my teeny weeny little channel, in light of this really, really important conversation, just make a really broad statement of like, you are the general you watching, are important and like are worthy of surviving, and you do deserve friendship, and you do deserve to be respected, and you also do deserve access to the spaces that you would like to enter because you are a human being. So if you haven't heard that today, there you go. I just said it and I meant it with my whole chest. And uh, yeah, I also just want to like really quickly say like it really really sucks that it takes like extra effort, right, to like connect with people who share your values when you are someone who is like extremely marginalized. And that really sucks. I hate that personally, and I struggled with it for a very long time. Just this whole thing of like, oh well, everyone else is going to parties or like meeting people or whatnot, but when it comes to me, like I don't have the same opportunities. It's just not that easy. It's very complicated. And so I think, again, coming back to the vulnerability conversation, I know being vulnerable is really, really scary sometimes, but I would really encourage everyone to be vulnerable and like reach out to people and even just like start engaging with them because, again, or like take the chances, right? Like submit that short story to that disability anthology, um, which I'm saying because that's exactly what Casper did. And like ever since that's happened, that has just like brightened my life so much. Like we've connected and become friends and had really good conversations. And yeah, I just can't like describe, like the value and like the beauty and all of that. So like thank you to Casper as well. You, uh, my bestie, because yeah, I don't know. I just oh my god, is this a declaration of love? I think this might be. I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
I, I'm so like bad at saying it out loud, but genuinely, like, I'm just so proud to know you and be your friend. And like, I'm like literally, I'm doing something weird in my throat right now, where I'm like clenching it almost to like not
Yep.
sound like emotional. But
There
yes,
goes
thank
my
you so
makeup.
much. If my makeup goes, I'm gonna do the rest of the stream just like this, so you can't see.
No, it still looks
um,
perfect. That was
thank you.
beautiful. That was a very beautiful thing. I theoretically was like, oh, that has like I have a very short poem that works with this, but uh, I I don't even know if I want to read it now because now I'm just like sappy crying. Let me see if I can find it. Even is it somewhere? I think I know it by heart, but there. A reminder: the drop forgot its crash made waves. Keep going. So yeah, you're making waves. You're having an impact. You're not alone. And submit to anthologies. You'll find amazing people that you love. There.
Like that's the concluding message of this: is submit to
Yes.
anthologies.
Should we like
But
leave
also,
it? Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say also I feel like to like briefly wrap up like the common sort of messages I think we've had in this live stream. I think it is to be stubborn and to act out of spite if that is like a good source of fuel for you, and it is to be brave. I think those are like the three things that um, are like kind of some of the biggest answers I think to this question of like how do we keep creating and how do we create when we are like disabled or chronically ill and all of that sort of stuff.
They will attack you anyway, so you might as well pick up weapons. And
Yeah.
also, if it,
Oh no, I feel like your audio just cut out. Oh wait, it's coming back.
am I- okay, I can.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying, they're going to attack you anyway, so don't be afraid to pick up weapons, but also, uh, be patient with yourself if it takes you years to learn how to fight, because and to find that courage in yourself, because that's part of growing up. I mean, that sounds like so cheesy, but I feel like turning 30 helped, but that's not something I can recommend people. Like, turn 30. Actually, if you're under 30, like, please turn 30, stay there with us, and then get older. Um, yeah, anyway, so if there's still a Q&A, like, if anyone still has questions, feel free to to drop them while we're sobbing over here. Uh, and um, yeah. So just one more time, there might be an audiobook in the future. It's a mixture of funds and trying to figure out how to like set up a tiny recording space in my bedroom. I have like mattresses. I have mattresses for sound like proving, but I don't have strength, and my spouse has lots of ideas but no time, so we're working on it. But once that's in place and I have the money to buy a mic, I am planning on recording an audiobook because I do want it to be available in more accessible forms. So that's something to hopefully look forward to. I will definitely, if you want to stay up up to up to up to date with my stuff, you can follow my Substack. It's a spoonful of life, or follow me on Blue Sky or Twitter, or I guess TikTok. Those are kind of the ones that I'm really only active on Blue Sky, and not really that much either. I'm bad at it. I was like but to my defense, I spent like a year super posting daily everything for my debut novel, and it didn't really do that much. So now I'm like, I don't want to spend my energy on that anymore. So yeah, and follow Ella because they are like way smarter on all the platforms and say a lot of really cool things constantly that make you laugh or rage or not. Thank you, Amazing Kitten, for being here. Thank you, Noel, and thank you for everyone else. Um, I it, I did not expect anyone to show up, so it was really nice to have people and some conversation.
Yeah, I feel like this has been amazing, and it's been really, really fun for me to see the little eyeball symbol with like the number going like up and down throughout the stream. This has been so good. Also, yes, again, I'll just echo the thanks to Amazing Kitten. Thank you for asking questions and like engaging. And Noelle, obviously, hello. I can't see you, but you're listening, and that's enough. Uh, Oh my gosh. Okay. Should we just vibe for like a couple more minutes or?
So, considering that like Amazing Kitten already wrote something, um, and Noel asked questions earlier, I feel like there might not be any more questions. But if you want to plug anything, like plug away.
Oh my god, that means I have to like remember.
Oh,
Um.
on the spot either. We're
Who am
planning
I?
a lot of
Where
things
am I?
to do in the future that we might do when we have the spoons too. We're like talking about a podcast and more streams and stuff, and I hope we're gonna do some of the stuff. So if you enjoyed us talking, we'll probably keep talking, and maybe we'll let you be part of it. Wait.
Yes. Like yes, part of the being brave and like the connecting with people. If you're like, oh my god, I want to talk about something, and it has to do with like disability or chronic illness or like media and all of that sort of stuff. You know what? Just leave a comment. I will literally be like, yes, there is nothing to stop us. We can do whatever we like. We have free will and all of the power on this. I'm saying this to convince myself and everybody else that we could do whatever. There was something else I wanted to quickly say. Um, oh my god, I cannot remember it. I guess I'm on social media as at Ella T Holmes basically everywhere, and then on Substack I am Ella Has Thoughts, which is the same as this YouTube channel. So hopefully not too confusing that I am different in different places. But yeah, if anyone watching this at any point has any more questions or thoughts or whatnot, feel free to leave them because yeah, I'm sure we will get to them at some point. I'm sure you'll see us like lurking in the comments. Even at, like 10 years in the future, we'll just be checking in and like answering.
On that note, too, if you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, we can do that. We are capable of it, as we've seen most days, some days.
Yes,
So,
I echo that. But this has been so fun. I'm also like really really terrible at goodbyes and shutting off live streams and stuff. So um, I don't know. Should we I don't know what to do.
I think you just need to pull the plug and run away. I mean, it's really late for you two. Like, it's impressive how awake you are.
Once it gets past like 1 a.m., my brain is like, it's a new day. We're awake.
Oh no! Okay, well then, how about this? We'll just sing like a little bit, la le lu. We'll just sing a little bit of a lullaby to sing you to sleep while the live stream slowly ends.
Imagine if I just fell asleep and because I'm the creator of this, it just kept going on forever and ever and
Yeah.
ever.
And your
This makes
lovely
me want to
cat
do a bit.
will sit in front of it.
Oh yeah, he'll be his own host of the Watch Me Bite Ella's Feet show. And
Perfect.
then I'll have to
Yeah.
start charging because obviously I can't give away like feet videos for free.
Okay,
Anyway,
well, that's
this is like
a different channel to plug. Should we?
Oh my god. Okay, yes, one last plug. Everyone buy and read Survival and Other Surprises, please and thank you. There it is. There's the lovely book. There's the lovely author. Yay. I'll try it.
Me.
Of course. Anytime, every time, all the time. There we go.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, goodbye.